All right, now hopefully you can see I've got the mathematical equation representing the conventional nothing is 1 minus 1 equals 0. The system thing nothing is a process that begins with the assumption of a pre-existing physical realm, which is 1. 1 can represent a single object or the set of everything, and ending in its annihilation resulting in as nothing. So it begins with the assumption of a pre-existing physical world, which is the 1, and then you negate the thing, and that gets you to 0. This process is mathematically expressed 1 minus 1 equals 0. The initial assumed state of that of a thing slash physicality and the no thought is the negation, the -1 of the thing to arrive at nothing. The conventional understanding of nothing requires a two-step process. The first step is the assumption of the existence of a singular thing, and the second step is the negation of that thing. This is the creation of mathematics. First, the concept thing is added into consciousness slash the mind's eye, and this concept thing is represented on a two-dimensional surface as 1. Then that thing is negated, which is the act of subtraction. Seems to work, right? But upon closer investigation, there arises a serious problem. The act of assuming a physical thing is represented by the 1, and the nothing, which is represented by the 0, is the result of the process. But then the -1 step of the process is unrecognized and undefined. So this gets very tricky because Maya likes to divert your attention here and say, don't look at that, look at this. It's a magician's act, and it's very tricky to point out to someone who's taken all of it to be true, to recognize the subtlety of what's happening and how they're being duped, okay? So the negative is defined as the absence of the positive, and nothing cognized as is exactly the same phenomenon. So right now, the way it is that the negative and the nothing, the 0 and the -1, are being represented by the definition of the nothing, okay? But nothing, as represented by the 0, is the result of applying the negative to the positive. There is no word in the materialistic model of thing slash nothing representing the subtraction part of the equation. The nothing is the absence of the thing, and absence is defined as the negative of the positive. So the situation is that nothing is representing both the 0 and the -1, because that's where all of this leads, right? The nothing, right? So that's describing the object. The thing is itself a self-referring, it's an object. What's a thing? Well, it's an object. And what's an object? Well, it's a thing. Okay? So there's that little Ponzi. And then you get to the nothing, and the definition just keeps going, same thing, same thing, same thing. We get to absence. Okay? So nothing, eventually, if you follow the rabbit hole of the definition of nothing, it leads to absence. Okay? And absence is the state of being away, and also the state of non-existence, which are, like I pointed out, two different states. One is existing but not present, not here, and one is not existing, and so that means it's not anywhere. Okay? The mathematical model of fundamental reality is not in alignment with the model of fundamental reality presented by the English language. The following model aligns it. Firstly, it is imperative to recognize that the initial assumption upon which the entire thing-nothing model is based is exactly that, an assumption. Prior to the Big Bang, the thing represented by the 1 in the equation did not exist. The four-dimensional realm includes a state prior to the arising of physicality. It does not assume the pre-existence of physical objects, as does the thing/1 model. Therefore, the correct mathematical expression required to comprehensively represent reality is +1. -1 equals 0. So these are two distinct states interacting, if you will. Maybe we could put brackets around both of these, but the fact that the initial use of 1 never includes the positive symbol prior is an expression of the bias of materialism. It is the manifestation of the incorrect concept that has the physical realm as absolute ultimate reality. You see, it's assumed that the positive that would represent the thing, what that would represent positive, the negative and the positive are on equal level. This is what I'm saying. And pure mathematics would have that. Pure mathematics would not initially assume the pre-existence of a physical realm. So every time that a mathematician uses the number 1, it should have a positive sign in front of it. Do you see what I mean? You're adding into the equation the concept of a physical object. Science itself has shown that there was a state prior to the arising of the physical universe. The arising of the physical realm can be represented by the positive symbol. The state that did exist, how does non-existence exist anyway? Prior to the arising of the physical realm, that was not physical, can be represented by the negative symbol. There is no need to invoke the conceptualization of quantity. The positive symbol is sufficient to represent everything within the mind's eye, if that everything means all of the things / the physical realm. The negative symbol now represents non-things rather than being lumped in with the nothing. So the negative is not simply the absence of the positive, it now expresses sovereignty and is not dependent upon the positive. The unequal and unbalanced state of the negative being completely dependent upon the positive, and the positive in no way being dependent upon the negative, the thing is assumed as absolute, as expressed by the lack of the placement of the positive symbol prior to the 1. So the unequal and unbalanced state of the negative being completely dependent upon the positive and the positive in no way being dependent upon the negative is so obviously incorrect that the acceptance of it as being valid and accurate is nothing less than delusion. This is the programming that has taken place within human consciousness through school and through the teaching, the ramming it down our throats to memorize, and just accept the way in which mathematics operates. But can you imagine what would happen if a consciousness accepted something at the very most fundamental model, accepted it to be accurate and true when it was actually inaccurate and incorrect? Well, a society based on that might just collapse and fall apart eventually. Yeah. All right, so now is the time to introduce the fundamental model of reality. So when reality is described at the most fundamental level, the same triune system invariably appears. This triune system arises naturally, organically, intuitively within consciousness when it investigates the primary operation of the world and the self. It is the fundamental model of reality, and therefore the dualistic model of thing/nothing is incomplete and incorrect. The theory of enlightenment adapts the materialistic model as follows. Thing moves from being the word representing fundamental reality to the right column. Well, I guess here it's the left column. To the column where thing now refers exclusively to the physical realm. So there's no, everything now means all of the things. It doesn't include the negative, nor does it include 0. Thing now just means this bias of the system. The non-thing, so this is really important. There was never the non-thing aspect of the current conventional understanding of nothing is placed in the other column. This allows for the existence of phenomena that are not physical. As this realm is not dependent upon the thing for its existence, it can have its own associated word. That word is thought. See, all of this isn't just the opposite of this. This all has its own word. Thought, or mind, is the non-physical phenomenon. Given that the voice in your head cannot be seen, audibly heard, touched, smelled, or tasted, it is not within the physical realm. As indicated by the model, the mind-thought realm is defined by quantum rules and therefore does not adhere to the laws of gravity. Potential is the word used to represent that which is the superposition. There is not something in superposition. The superposition is the reality. And the way in which that reality can be defined is through the dualism. See, this is the really tricky part. Neither particle physics nor cosmology has ever discovered nothing in its conventional understanding as being non-existence. Beyond the boundary of the physical realm is the quantum realm, and the quantum realm is a non-thing. It is not nothingness, nor is it in opposition to things. Beyond the boundary of the physical universe is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is a description of a singular consciousness that is completely non-physical, which is mind / wave function / Holy Ghost. It's an expression of the process. This is obviously the same process, and this is how it expresses itself at its most fundamental level. It's not dualistic. You see, it's very simple. Mathematics being completely abstract, this is what this is getting at, is that the connection between the mathematical realm and the physical realm is made up. It doesn't really exist. So mathematics being completely abstract and self-referential exists in and comprises the thought realm mind. It's a part of the thought realm. And if you will, it's leaking in. I'll get to this I'll get to this elsewhere, but it's leaking in to the physical realm, and the physical realm is leaking in to the mental realm because of our proximity in time to this upcoming singularity that is the extinction event. And I get into all of that, then this actually describes all of that. Or expresses all of that. So now, the fundamental model of reality is expressed by the English language is now thought, potential, and thing. Rather than something, anything, everything, and nothing. In practical terms, the voice in your head and images in the mind's eye are seen as their own realm, separate from and equal to the physical realm. The thought and physical realms arise simultaneously and directly from the potential by the bias of the observer. Expressed in the most practical and relevant way, when you pay more attention to the voice in your head than you do to physical sensations, you are identifying self as thought and taking mind to be fundamental. When you pay more attention to sensations than to mind, you are identifying self as the body and taking the physical realm to be fundamental. So this is what the double slit experiment is a metaphor of. It's metaphor of your direct experience and how thought and symbol and language interacts in a superposition over top of the physical realm. Think of it like this. All right, so this is a very, very accurate analogy. You're standing directly above the fulcrum of a teeter-totter / seesaw. Your natural state is that of perfect balance. You decide to look over to the teeter side. That shifting of the focus of attention causes the teeter side to dip. A further attraction of attention caused by the interest in the dip causes the dip to dip again. So you look, it dips, that catches your eye a little bit more, so you look even more intently, and that causes it to dip again. And that is the process of how one of these realms becomes apparently more fundamental than the other. It's just the bias of attention. But the removal of attention ceases the dipping, but there is still a remaining momentum. At some indeterminate state, if you continue to dip, look, dip, look, dip, look, at some indeterminate state, you will be unable to exert enough energy to rebalance, and the system will tip chaotically. The moment that the teeter side meets the ground is the point where and when you have forgotten about the other side and have fully accepted the teeter realm as fundamental reality. For a long time now, you have taken the physical realm to be fundamental, but now you have begun to remember that you are the fulcrum. But full remembrance has not yet arrived. Using our analogy, human consciousness is so acutely balanced and self-aware that it is able to see the ends of both the teeter and the totter side in its periphery simultaneously. This special vision that humanity possesses, its level of self-awareness, is expressed as the fundamental model of reality. The reason why we can say we're body, mind, spirit is because we are starting to realize that we are the spirit, and we can see in our periphery that both the body and the mind and all of these other things, this is expressing that special awareness that is coming through humanity. The middle column is you. You are the absolute, the source, life, existence itself, God. This is all describing your direct experience in the present, all of the time. The very purpose of life is to come to this realization. The fundamental model of reality is a clue in the mystery, an exit sign in the labyrinth. Materialism, on the other hand, and dualistic models are the deceptions and the illusions that pull consciousness deeper into the labyrinth. Look at the state of humanity. Does it appear as though maybe we fucked something up really early on, and now we don't even know how we got to the state we're in, but the state we're in is leading to a literal hell? Now, again, this requires an immense amount of objective perspective, right? We're not trying to spin anything so that our ego feels better. We are trying to get to reality via truth, no matter how difficult it is to accept. Okay? The fundamental model of reality presented in the theory of enlightenment operates on the system of rather than the current system of other than. Other than generates continual conflict and dualism. Is there any wonder why the United States of America has the most powerful military to ever exist on the planet? Why it has a military as strong as the rest of the world put together? It's because it's based on a system of other than. Other than generates continual conflict and dualism, which is also the governmental system of the United States and the legal system of the United States. Please recognize how important this is. Other than generates continual conflict and dualism, where other of generates symbiosis and unity. This is the model upon which stable and unified societies are based. You put this in conjunction with the blockchain, and this is what the new free world should be based upon. This is the model upon which stable and unified societies are based. It simply makes more sense, logically and intuitively, than the current train wreck that I just went through. That is the anything, something, everything, nothing model. One must be steadfastly objective through this process. If the state of human consciousness is much like that of being programmed by a cult leader or fooled by a magician, then strong resistance would be expected, and it would be a possible sign. Resistance will break down the deprogramming no matter how clear, reasonable, and obvious its presentation. Complexity, convolution, and difficulty, also known as not making sense, on the other hand, are expressions of incorrectness. Do not let your ego's inability to accept the truth keep you from it.